Hey everyone, I'm back with another video. So happy Tuesday. So yesterday I had to go to the Social Security Administration and get a new replacement Social Security card, which was a mind-numbing experience in itself, and I was very glad to get back home. But I ended up working last night, helping my brother close, and that was also another mind-numbing experience. Um, oh, so I have decided, since I am by myself and everything, that I'm going to go ahead and read the next chapter to you. Um, yeah. Also, next week, next week, my author's copies are coming in. I'm sorry, I had a like a brain fart or something like that, which is not any fun at all to have. So yeah, so I'm going to read this, and hopefully, um, there will not be any mistakes. Hopefully, hopefully. All right, chapter 7. I doubted that something that Misty would have approved of, despite how rotten she was to everyone. I'm going to agree, said Sam. However, what they believe in fit with what Justin and Annie believe. If anyone wanted Misty killed, it must have been one of them. Daniel shook his head and said, "Killing your mother, why?" Probably found out that they were involved in what she was against, and at such an extreme level. Do you think Misty had a will? Barbara asked. Probably, Sam answered. The will is currently in probate, and no one will know its contents for the next 3 months. Then how was her cremation paid? She might have had some money set aside with instructions that her husband be allowed to access it upon her death. That sounds like the sensible thing to do, Daniel said. The thing is that there's no way to prove that either of them had their mother killed, Sam told them. I doubt the police think that psycho siblings had their mother offed. The event is coming up, Barbara said. I think I might have a plan to expose them for what they had done. Oh, why do I have a bad feeling about this? Nothing is going to happen when we get Hawk and his partner involved, Barbara said, and I feel that they would be more than happy to help me. Yep, this is going to be bad. Before I want to stop it for a second and say this. My eyes kind of had that glare, which is like, oh, what am I reading? Oh, that was too bright. So yeah. So no mistake on here, was just the glare, like, oh. Alright, back to the story. The dental records arrived. The medical examiner told Hawk and Miller, whom she had called to come down. So, who burned the witch? Emma Stone. Sorry. So, who's the burnt witch? I wrote... Dang, why did I not say it as I wrote it? Why? It's not a mistake. It was my mistake. Emma Stone, she answered, and real witches would find that line highly insulting. Sorry, he said. We sent what we could to the lab, and we should know how she ended up in the woods. I highly doubt she went in the woods of her own free will. What is the point of burning someone at the stake? Miller asked. Well, she wasn't liked by certain groups of people, he told Miller, so I guessed that it was to send a message. And right now, the message is that we will kill you just because we don't like what you do. Which, right now, is selling books. So, who's going to tell Barbara Market that her friend is dead? Hall looked at his partner and said, I leave that joyless job to you. Great, thanks, Miller said slowly. Barbara frowned as she looked through the same videos that Sam had told her about. This whole thing reminded her too much of history and what happens when you allow something like this to fester in your own country. What made things worse was that the same influential people thought this was nothing. Nothing good can happen when you allow a virus to grow. This made her all more determined to talk to the final bookstore owner, find out if anyone from this group had ever talked to them, and if they had, what kind of threats had they spoken. Around 9, Barbara was ready to head to bed when the doorbell rang. She checked her footage and it showed Miller. She had only seen him a couple of times and wondered what she might have done this time to have him come over. "What can I do for you this time, detective?" she asked when she opened the door. His face was grim and he said, "I'm not here on a pleasant business. A body was found in the woods." Barbara felt her blood go cold, and something told her that she wouldn't like what he was about to say to her. "What happened?" she asked him. "She was burned at the stake," he told her. "I regret to inform you it was Emma Stone." Those words hit Barbara like a ton of bricks. She fell to the floor and sobbed. Barbara didn't remember what happened next. All she felt was that someone had put something in her hand that turned out to be a cup of tea. The tears going down her face, and she didn't have the energy to wipe them away. "I'm sorry for your loss," he told her. "Did you talk to Mrs. Stone before she died?" Barbara nodded but didn't say anything. "Did she say anything to you?" he asked her. She told me about some books that her husband was moving. She said that she worried they would be burned should anything happen to her." "What kind of books?" "Classics," she answered. "Oh God, what will her husband—" "Hawk is taking care of that," he assured her. "Did she tell you Sorry, guys. Did she tell you about any death threats that she was getting?" Barbara shook her head. "Do you want me to call someone?" "Sally, her number is—" She pointed the phone, but she didn't hear the call. Only when Sally arrived did Barbara finally drink some of the now cold tea. Barbara woke up the following day feeling like her world had come crashing down. Sally drove her to... Okay, sorry about that. Barbara woke up the following day feeling like her world had come crashing down. Sally drove her to what was once Emma's business. A note on the door told anyone that the store would be closed due to a loss in the family. However, hard work was being done inside. She found Emma's husband taking books out. He looked like she felt, and she asked, "Want some help?" "Thanks," he said. "I'll help out," Sally said. "I'm sorry about your loss, Josh." "I never thought being a bookseller could get you killed," he told them. "Emma was special, and her work will live on," Barbara vowed. "I'm not letting her legacy die with her." "Thanks," he said. 3 trips later, all the essentials and unimportant books had been moved. Josh made it a point to tell them that he would reopen the store when the killer had been caught. When he had left, Sally took her to the one place where you could legally drown your sorrow, the ice cream shop. "Ice cream is good for grief," Sally told her. "So is brandy and a German chocolate cake," Barbara told her. "True, but one will get you jailed and the other will get you fat," Sally said, "and I doubt that Emma would want you to eat yourself to death." The employee put a bowl in front of her with a double mocha espresso fudge ice cream. The lady that brought it told her it had been... The lady that brought it told her it's been proven to help someone think clearly, even in grief. "It's saved me from making a bad funeral decision," she told them. "Thanks," Barbara said, and she took a bite. "I'm surprised that anyone found the body," Sally said. "I mean, it's not like it's hiking season." "I heard about that," the woman said. "Nasty way to go." "I can't believe that she's gone," Barbara said, and Sally gave her something to blow her nose. She was so bright and happy. "Honey, the police will catch the killer, and I'm sure that your friend wouldn't want you to think of how she died. She would want you to celebrate her life." "And we will do just that," Sally said, "at the memorial gathering." "I heard what happened," her agent told her when Barbara got home from overeating ice cream. Ching was back from the vet and did not like the cone. However, he stayed by Barbara's side, and she knew he could tell she needed comfort. I want to add Emma to the list. I did not write Barbara. That was a mistake. That was a slip of my tongue. Oh, God. Wow, even when I don't make, even though it's really weird, I don't write mistakes, yet I make mistakes when I read it. Oh, Lord, save me. Alright. I want to add Emma to the list, she told him. I want to remind everyone of what she's did for our community. And I'll make sure that that's done. Thanks, Barbara said. I'm also thinking about writing a small children's book. Emma had an idea for one, and I want to do it in her honor. Will the royalties go to the family? Yes, she answered. Then get the story, write it, and I will ensure it's published. Thanks, Barbara said, and then she hung up. She then called Emma's widower. Josh, I need to warn you. About what? He asked. The killer that killed Emma and the other two has a sick fascination with killing off someone's legacy. I'm coming over to ensure nothing happens to you or your daughter. Will you bring the police? No, I'm bringing the Billy Club, she answered, and Sam. Barbara had only been in Emma's house a couple of times since she had come back home. Her and Sam's cars arrived simultaneously and got out almost simultaneously. She opened her back door and pulled out a short billy club that her husband had taken from a movie set several years before his death. It was hard as a rock and made you rethink your life choices. Where the hell did you get a billy club from? My dead husband, Barbara answered, and I'm going to use it on someone's head. Remind me to never ask where you get half the stuff you own. Josh let them in and Sam closed the door. Where? Don't ask, Sam cut in. I don't think you want to know what she intends to use it on. So what's going to happen? Josh asked her. Knowing how they work, one of our little vipers will probably come around tonight to take you and your daughter out. I'll be hiding, and when they're dumb enough to walk in, our uninvited guests will find out what a melon feels like. I'll move both cars away from the house, Sam told them, and then I'll cut through and meet you back here. Barbara nodded and Sam walked out the front door. So how's Jessica holding up? Barbara asked him when Sam left. She keeps asking when Mommy's coming home, he told her. I don't know how to tell her that Mommy is never coming home. Barbara touched his shoulder and said, Don't worry, we'll get justice for everyone. I hope so, he said, and she hated it when there was nothing she could do to help him or anyone. Sam came back and made sure that the doors were locked. We turned the lights off around 10, he told them. That should make our guests think that we're all asleep. Is the police around the corner? Josh asked them. The police have no idea we're doing something this stupid, Sam told him. It's only stupid if we fail. The lights turned off around 10 and the three waited. Jessica had already been put to sleep, so the only thing they could do was wait and see. Sam had his phone on low light to play a game he had been on for days. The whole house felt like it was on pins and needles. Barbara was not even sure if the killer had gotten wise and that the group knew how the person thought. Josh had gone to sleep, and she didn't blame him. The whole thing was enough to knock anyone out. However, Barbara was determined to save their lives, and if it meant she lost hours of sleep, she was willing to do that. And then, when she thought she might have been wrong, she heard the sound of breaking glass. Getting up, she poked her head down the hall to find a hand turning the lock and the door. Hurrying to the closet, she climbed in and closed the door, waiting. The figure had to go past the closet to reach its target. There was no other way around it. Sure enough, the figure walked past the door, and Barbara slowly opened it. She gave one mighty swing, and the billy club touched the back of the figure's head. The figure didn't even make any sound as it landed in a heap. She switched all the lights on, causing Josh and Sam to wake up. What the? Our little visitor has arrived, Barbara told them. Man, you're nasty with that thing, Josh remarked. Sam looked at the figure and then at Barbara. Remind me to never make you mad. This has got to be the dumbest thing that I've seen three people do, Hawk told them after the intruder, Annie Hart, had been taken to the hospital. You could have died. True, but you have your suspect. I'm keeping a close watch on you from now on, he warned Barbara. As he turned his back, Barbara allowed herself a slight grin. Barbara arrived at work that afternoon and was sure Sam had told Sally and Daniel about what had happened. Sally grinned at her when she walked in. He told you? She said to Sally. Of course, Sally answered. I'm going to agree with Detective Hawk about you three almost dying. However, imagine the look on Annie's face when she discovered she got hit with a 19th century billy club by a bookstore seller. I would have had a camera to take a photo of that. Reproduction of a 19th century billy club, Barbara corrected, but still, it hurts like something else. So, what happens now? Daniel asked her. Well, when she wakes up, she will face, for now, break and entry charges. When she wakes up, and they get her to confess, she will be given the added charge of whatever they can charge her, most likely murder. I think she's going to rat out her associates, Daniel said. I think she is an associate, Sally said. It will be her boss and other associates. Or her father and brother, Barbara clarified. The book club arrived for their usual 3-day-a-week book meeting. They were still on the Victorian craze, but thankfully they didn't ask for tea and cakes. Mrs. Chips smiled at Barbara, and she returned it, and then she hurried her little group in and sat down. So, what are they reading now? Sally asked Barbara. Sherlock Holmes, I think, Barbara answered. For the rest of the day, Barbara had to take small breaks when she felt the need to cry. She hated feeling like this, but Shing helped. He still hated the cone, but it didn't bother him when his mistress needed comfort. Thanks, she told him, feeling some measure of comfort. She had felt a considerable measure of satisfaction when she hit Annie with that billy club. When they closed the day, Sally took Barbara to the captain's inn, leaving Shing in the store. Barbara wasn't sure this was a good idea, but Sally told her Daniel was watching the little kitty. I know you haven't anything today, she said, and you will get into a wreck that we can't blame on murderers. She knew Sally meant well and appreciated that in her friend. She made it a point to cherish her small number of friends from now on. So how hard did you hit her with that club? Sally asked when the waiter left with their orders. Pretty hard, she answered. I figured out that one of the 3 cycles attacked the deceased shortly after the body was found. I won't include Chuck, as he's probably not a victim. I'm going to agree, she said. However, I'm surprised that Josh didn't have an alarm. Most people around here don't. It was a mistake. I put her instead of here. Oh, Lord. Barbara said, I figured out by the lack of signs warning intruders that a security system protects the place. It's all part of the nothing bad happens in our town vibe. Also, an alarm didn't go off when she broke the glass, which would have broken the invisible line that tells the system that no one is trying to get in or out while the alarm is active. And you learned all this when I first arrived, Barbara finished. Crazy, she said. Not as crazy as someone that doesn't have one, she said, and I'm shocked, though not surprised, Emma didn't get one when she started to get those threats. As required by law, she had an alarm system when she opened the shop, but not on her home. And Joss and Jessica would both have been dead if you hadn't figured out how they thought. It's called paying attention, she told her, though I have a feeling that just because one of them is out of the picture doesn't mean the other 2 won't try something. Well, the shop is empty of anything of value, Sally stated. The only thing they're burning down is a space. I agree with that, said Barbara, biting her lower lip. Why would you burn down your mother's business makes me wonder. Was it because you hate what she did, or was it something else? How do you figure that? asked Sally, taking a drink of her water. Because of how close to Misty's death her store burned, Barbara said. It wasn't that long before that fire broke out, and the front door was broken, but not the back door. Did Misty know the lock was broken? Sally asked her. Might have, Barbara said. However, she probably would have done something about it, but things happened. Is your store insured? Sally asked her. I made sure it was, she answered, drinking her water. I have e-books and all sorts of different brands of Kindles and Nooks. Those things are expensive. Hence why the place is insured. Sally reasoned, and Barbara nodded. The police have Annie based on breaking in Josh's home, and I don't know if she's woken up from that bash on the head. Yeah, Sam mentioned that you hit her pretty hard. And do I look like I care? Barbara retorted. If she wakes up, I'm hoping she'll do the sensible thing and tell the police the truth. I doubt she'll do that, Sally said, which leaves you and whoever is left in some real danger. Yeah, and I know several groups are coming to the event, and those who are doing it have no idea of what might be the truth behind all of those nasty events. I bet the other two will be smug like a cat, thinking they're getting away with it. So, what are we going to do? Barbara looked at her and said, I'm going to talk to the last bookstore owner I haven't yet talked to. Let's hope I can get some information to help us out. Do you think he or she will even talk to you? Barbara sighed and said, I hope so, because I need a clear picture of how this family works. Can you please ask why most of the stores only deal with one subject? Sally asked. Unlike me and Misty. Yeah, she said, I just think they were way obsessed over it. I think you might be right about that. Barbara could have told Sally a much longer explanation, though she knew that Sally had been right about one of the main reasons that Taylor and Emma had chosen to sell only one kind of book. Another reason was that selling only books with one genre type was cheaper. Unlike her, who sold everything, sometimes the rent made it hard to sell more than what you probably wanted to sell. Also, there had to be a demand for those kinds of books, and you had to be able to unload many products. So that night, Sally dropped Barbara off in front of Serial Books, a store that sold nothing but used books. It was owned by Patricia Croakley, who Barbara knew was a massive fan of her books. The front of the store had 3 tables filled with nothing but books, and the inside was a fire hazard just waiting to happen. The only clear area was the checkout desk and the Maine Coon the owner had. Barbara rang the bell and waited. A few minutes later, Mrs. Coakley emerged behind and saw her standing there. She smiled and said, Your books sell well here. I'm glad that they do, Barbara said with a grin, though I'm sure you heard about what happened to Emma. Patricia sighed and said, Yes, I heard about that nasty bit of work. I can understand the purpose of killing someone popular with almost everyone. Well, our line of work isn't safe right now. Are you talking about the Moms for Liberty? I'm talking about any group, Barbara said. Have you been attacked by them? Well, not by the main groups, she said. They mostly stay within the confines of school boards and school librarians. But I have been sent nasty mail, not death threats, by a couple of other groups that aren't so well known. Let me go and get it for you. She left, and 20 minutes later she returned with a small box. She handed it over, and Barbara looked through them. Most were small groups, as some of her fellow authors had told her about, but the last one was enough to make her blood run cold. It was from the Citizens United Against Intellectual Freedom and Indecency. She opened up and stared at the words that were printed. Mrs. Coakley, it has come to our attention that you sell books that we find morally corrupt to our youth and even some adults. I don't know why you think you're protected from selling these things. Books like the ones that you sell make a mockery of our nation, our faith, and our lives. And if you don't remove them, then there will be more than books being burned. Did you show this to the police? No, she answered. I didn't think they would be interested. I'll go and give these to the detective, she said. Do you have an alarm? She nodded and said, You don't think they will attack me like they did Misty, Taylor, and Emma? I don't know, Barbara confessed. I hope not, but I just don't know. And she left the shop. Detectives Miller and Hawk watched the ATF agents leave in a hurry. Why they were going, neither man knew or understood. You don't think there was a bomb threat? He asked Miller. I'm about to believe anything at this point, he said, and Hawk started rapping his pen against the desktop. You know how I hate it when you do that, he said. Sue me, Hawk snapped. So, let's go over what we know, Miller said. We know that Mrs. Hart wasn't dead when the killer burned her in her car. Then we know that not only has her business been burned down, but the death of Mr. Lovechild and Mrs. Stone follow the same pattern. Well, the last one almost. And the reason for that is because Miss Hart's head made contact with a billy club, Hawk reminded him. Oh, I haven't forgotten about that, Miller said, allowing a slight grin to form on his lips. That was one nasty hit. Didn't know that a pen user had such a nasty aim, Hawk said. So it's clear that the killer or killers destroy everything that's connected to their victims. I think it's safe to say that this is some fantasy they have. I think there's a lot more going on here, at least with Mrs. Hart's death, than just simply burning someone because you don't like what they sell. Insurance money, Miller guessed, and Hawk nodded. Well, we know that the business was insured, had to be. But But was Mrs. Hart insured? He asked. I think we should head to the court and find out if there's a life insurance policy on her. Haven't they paid yet? If there is, the medical examiner already sent the report out. We need to find out if she does have one and how much she was insured for. Oh, let's hope it's for $1 million, Miller said. There'll be enough to prove to me that this is a close and personal murder. Whew. Both men arrived at the courthouse, built during the New Deal program when the old courthouse had burned down 5 years prior, and headed for probate court. When they arrived in the small office, which was done in rich, deep wood, they found a free clerk. What can I do for you? The woman, a perky blonde in her late 30s, asked them. They showed their badges, and Hawk said, I was wondering something I should have asked a week ago. Did Mrs. Hart have a life insurance policy in her name? I'll see if I can find out, she promised, and she vanished into another room. Let's hope we can find out, Miller said, because I don't like the idea of scum having any profits from what they've done. Agreed, said Hawk, checking his watch. The court is due to close in half an hour. The woman came back with the file and put it on the table. She flipped through it and said, yes, Mrs. Misty Hart had a life insurance policy for $7.3 million. Hawk whistled at that figure. Was there a clause that the policy would be null and void if the person was murdered? He asked her. She looked it over and said, no, there was nothing in it that said the policy would be voided if the policyholder was murdered. Both detectives looked at each other, and then Miller asked, who's the beneficiary of the policy? She looked down at it and answered, Chuck Hart, Justin, and Annie Hart. Thank you, Hawk told her, and both men walked out the door. They left, Barbara said to the clerk. Sorry, it's her saying, not the clerk saying. They left? Barbara said to the clerk at the front. The sound of thunder could be heard, which told her it would be a long night of rain and wind. I'm sorry, ma'am, but they are both gone, he told her. Maybe if you want to leave the box with me, I'll ensure that they get them. She wasn't going to leave the box with him. She would have no proof that they would get it. No, I'll wait for them to return, she said, taking her seat. She occupied her time playing games on her phone, answering emails, and calling to checking up on Ching. Looking up from one of their games, she saw Hawk and Miller walking in. Detectives, she said, getting up and wincing in pain as her legs told her brain that they didn't like the idea she had moved them. Mrs. Market, Hawk said as she limped over, what can I do for you? I have something you need to see, she told him, showing the box off. They took it, and Hawk said, thanks for the box, but what exactly is in it? I went to the last shop that doesn't have a dead owner, and she told me that she had been getting some hate mail and death threats from several groups of people. Well, not really, that was my mistake. One of them is a group that Chuck's children are a part of. Mrs. Market, how often do I tell you to leave the police business to us? Never, she answered, and last time that I checked, none of you even talked to the people with the information you needed. I was the one that did. She has a point, Miller reminded him. Oh, shut up, he snapped at him. Stay out of our business. Barbara crossed her arms and asked, so, do you both plan to arrest the people you believe did it? He's waiting for Mrs. Hart to wake up, Miller told her. Not helping, Hawk told him. Well, there's an event tomorrow afternoon, Barbara told him, and I have a feeling that our killers are going to be there. And how are you so sure that they will be there, or if there is even more than one? Because Annie Hart lacked enough brain cells to screw in a light bulb, Barbara told him. Sam told me that both children are involved in this group. It was a little white lie. Only Justin was mentioned, but then again, it might not be. There's no telling how deep Annie was in the whole thing. And want to bet there's a lot more involved in this than just someone killing a lonely bookseller? I'm thinking life insurance. We know about the life insurance, Miller told her, and she did sign her name. Was it a strong signature or a weak one? What does it have to do with anything? Hawk asked her, and she knew that he was getting annoyed with her. Because a strong signature indicates that she knew what she was signing. Back when my husband was still alive, he demanded that I take a life insurance policy out on him, along with the one that the studio has taken out. When he signed the policy, both of his signatures were strong. It means he was awake and aware of what he was doing. A weak one indicates the person is drugged. So if Missy's signature is weak, then it means that she didn't know what she was signing. And as long as someone was paying the premiums, she would continue not to know. And may I ask how you think that she was drugged? Her daughter is a chemist. Barbara answered. Someone who deals with chemicals, Miller said. Actually, in Britain, it also means someone who dispenses medication. So I think Sam was talking about the British term, not the American. Either way, she knows a thing or two about how to drug someone, Miller reminded her, and Barbara nodded in agreement. Do you both need a moment? Hawk asked them. The point that I'm trying to make, detective, is that Annie most likely drugged her mother so that she would sign the insurance papers. Some companies don't even come to see the person that is going to be on the policy, and people use that to their advantage, and the company most likely didn't check the quality of the signature before they allowed the policy to go through. I'm sure other people would have told us that if you were right. And they probably didn't know that Annie is a chemist, Barbara countered. And they probably... Miller snickering made them both turn. What? Hawk asked him. You both sound like an old married couple, he told them. I take that as an insult, Hawk told him. I think he is right, Barbara said, grinning at the now red-faced detective. Okay, fine. We have the signature looked at, Hawk told her. If that will make your heart happy. It would, Barbara said. Oh, and check out this website. She handed them a piece of paper with the website's address. There are some videos that show Justin at several events, and some of the threats he made are on the videos. She then left, hoping the detectives would follow through. Once back home, she saw that Sally wasn't alone in caring for Shane. Violet Fang was with her, though not dressed as Mrs. Adams. She came over an hour ago, she said. She's worried that she might be next after Emma's body had been found. I don't blame her, Barbara said, and she sat down. How are you feeling? Not well, Violet answered. I haven't gotten any more letters, which I did turn over to the police, but that doesn't mean someone isn't planning something. They must be laying low, Sally said to her. Annie got caught and is in the hospital, so they don't have someone to get in and out. However, that doesn't mean that they're not developing another plan. They can't help themselves. You, me, and Patricia are still alive. They caught one of them, Violet said, shocked and happy simultaneously. I caught her, but we leave people to think the police did, Barbara corrected. However, it's just dumb luck that Annie decided to continue the trend. Did you tell them about the life insurance policy? Sally asked Barbara. Yes, I did, Barbara said, and they had no idea I knew the difference between a strong and weak handwriting. I bet Hawk didn't like being shown up, Sally said, snickering. He didn't, Barbara answered, but it was nice knowing that I knew something he didn't. Sally left, and Barbara asked, why does that make any difference? Well, back when I was still writing, I had decided to talk to different departments while I was writing my books. Once I asked if I could talk to someone who knew about handwriting. I gave a sample to one, I believe it was out of Utah, and they told me a lot about myself that I didn't know. The lady told me that it had everything to do with the handwriting. You put a lot of your personality into everything that you do, including how you write. Fascinating, Violet said. Maybe mine says I like dark things. Mine says I'm a complicated person and won't rest until I find out the truth. I guess she was right about that. We know that she is. So about this event, Violet said, I do hope that you're not planning on serving food. I have no choice, Barbara said. The guests will expect it. However, I will have the police ensure that no one can poison the food. Yeah, because about 50 of Misty, Taylor, and Emma's friends are attending this event, especially Misty's friends, as some didn't have a chance to attend the funeral. Which is a good thing, Sally said. The last thing they need to see death up close and personal. Barbara knew that she was talking about Taylor's death. Barbara shuddered at that memory. I'm also going to announce a plan to do a children's book in honor of Emma. I think that she would like that. Oh, that's amazing, Sally said. Thanks, said Barbara, glad she liked the idea. I'm going to speak to Josh before I even talk about it. Sounds like a good idea, Violet said. So how's Ching been acting? Barbara asked, changing the subject. He's complaining all the time about the cone. Barbara sighed and said, well, if he's been fixed like I was told that he was, then this wouldn't be a problem. I'll take a kitten when the dark darlings arrive, Barbara said. I just love kittens. I'll write your name down for one, Barbara promised. Barbara called Josh about the children's book idea. Even though Josh and her daughter were hiding, he gave Barbara his number so she could call him if she needed to know anything else. He answered on the fourth ring. I'm glad I have your name listed, he said. I've been getting calls that the officer told me to ignore. That's a good idea, Barbara said. I'm calling to ask if writing a children's book about your daughter was all right. Put it in your wife's memory. That doesn't sound like a bad idea, he said. My wife would have loved it. I'm glad you approve, said Barbara. So we need to develop a title, and then I'll work for about a week to write the book. I have a wonderful illustrator who can go over the drawings that you pick. All royalties will go to your family. That will make my daughter very happy. Then I'll let my agent know that you're up for it, Barbara told him, and then she asked how everything was. It's okay, he said. Jessica hates the fact that she can't talk to her friends. I feel like I'm living in a nightmare. I understand how you're feeling, she said. Until then, stay calm and do what the officer tells you, and soon this'll be all over. I hope so, he said, and thanks for the support. Barbara smiled through the phone and said it was nothing. Barbara's phone rang 2 a.m. It took Barbara a few moments to realize that the phone ringing wasn't in her dream. She saw an unknown number and decided not to answer it. A moment later, a message appeared on her phone. Barbara, this is Detective Hawk. I got your number from your associate, Sam. I need to talk to you. Call back the number that you just ignored. Barbara called back. So what's up, she asked. Well, we got a call from a man who told us that he used to be Taylor's teacher when he was younger, Hawk said to her. He told me that he talked to you about the spot where the event is going to take place. Yes, I talked to him, Barbara confirmed. He told me that Taylor had the gift for the written word and that he had given something to Missy for safekeeping. Well, it was a locked box at the bank, Hawk told her, and there were several things in it that got our attention. What kind of things? Barbara asked, hoping that it wasn't as bad as her mind was thinking it was. Well, he found a manuscript on a jump drive and several letters Mrs. Hart wrote before her death. There was even a diary written by Mrs. Hart. Barbara was glad he was calling her by her name instead of the victim. What did the diary say? Well, I don't know all that it said. We turned it over to our people, but one of the entries I remember was written a month before she died. She clarified that she thought her husband and children were acting odd. She had invited them over for her birthday, which won't happen now because she's dead, and they told her they had better thing to do with their time than be with her. Barbara winced at that, but then said, That's harsh. I thought so too, he said. We also talked to the company Home, Fire, and Life, and they confirmed that Mrs. Hart did have insurance for her store, and that Mr. Hart's son had filed the claim. It's enough to reopen the shop, but I doubt the rest of the Hart family will do that. I'm going to agree, Barbara said. It looks like the enchanted read is done. Of course, I told them not to hand out the payout, Hawk told her. For what reason? Because I think and have a feeling that you think that Mr. Hart or Mr. Hart's son had something to do with the fire. Of course I do, Barbara confirmed, and I do think the Cycle bunch had everything to do with the other murders and the burning of their stores. And I know for a fact that the pet store will probably sue them once they find out that there's a reason that they lost those fish. The pet store and the daycare had to file insurance claims on their burned down property. Let's add another charge, Hawk told her. Before we decided to check out if Mrs. Hart had a life insurance policy in her life, the ATF left in a hurry. I just found out that it was a bomb threat, with an actual bomb planted near the main library. Barbara's heart felt her heart drop. Oh, God, she gasped. Yeah, and I also asked Sam about what information he uncovered back in Florida. Justin Hart was famous for one thing in Alaska. Bomb making, Barbara supplied. Correct, he said. He was caught blowing up bear dens and taking the hide for himself. Detective, I think you might know exactly who killed Taylor. I'm not the only one, he told her. I'll let you go. Have a good time at your event. As he hung up, she had a sudden image of dead bears, and that image was enough to make Barbara sick and scared. All right. Whew. That was a lot of words without anything to drink. Yeah, yes, very happy I finished chapter 7. I am going to go ahead and get a drink, and then I'm going to go on chapter 8, and I will upload it probably tomorrow or Friday. So I'm kind of hoping to finish this book tonight, and then I can send it back to Kindle Unlimited. So I'll see you guys around.